No, I just sent them I sort of set it up, scheduled it, and sent it to them. Okay. Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. Can someone just a second? Shall I call someone and check? I'm doing this for the first time. It took me a while to even understand what to do, which is why I'm so late. My apologies. Um, Now, how will I know if you're all on and you can see me? Now, this is a very strange thing. Huh? I've never talked to a computer before. Um, okay, I have 14 likes already. All right. So, does that mean 14 people are here? Okay, I'm going to call Pooja. Pooja, are you online? She doesn't get incoming calls.
Can you call this person?
No, I don't have his number.
Is it hello?
Alok is here. I have
Okay, okay. We just want to see whether okay more people that you need.
Oh God, and this number incoming call. Okay, good morning. So, all right. Am I audible? थोड़ा सा शुल्क तो है. It's a bit. You know what I need more? Is this what I didn't do?
Moving it.
It's very strange.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. So everyone can hear me and see me as well. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm so sorry for this delay. So even though I had scheduled everything, but at the last minute when I wanted to live stream, I didn't know how it was going to happen. So okay, great. Thank you very much. Now I've got lots of yeses and good mornings. So I can see that I can be heard. And I don't know how many people are listening, but that's all right. I suppose we'll manage. Um, Now the uh, today we were going to. This is the environment class. I hope everybody knows. Though Alok is not in my environment class, or is this a different Alok? So, Pooja doesn't have environment option. Okay, great. Very confused at the moment, as you can see. So I'm going to take some time to settle up. But in terms of the class, I'm sorry there's been such a long gap. I didn't realize that we could do this and this would reach a lot of people. But I'm very glad that we're doing it now. And it would have been so much better if I could see some of you at least. It looks like I'm talking to myself, really, because I can see I can see my image in front of me in the computer. But that's how life is, I suppose. Um, I hope everyone's been all right, not been sick. That's very, very important. This is the craziest thing we've ever lived through. I don't know if you all know, but I mean, of course, by now everybody must know. The last pandemic like this was in the 1920s. You know, the influenza pandemic, which killed millions of people, actually, across the globe. And this is a very, very interesting uh, question. It's a very serious question, but if you look at it academically, it's a very interesting question actually for the environment, the kind of course that we are studying. Because if you would have seen, I mean, we don't know definitively, but because it began from China, we do know that there were very important developments in the Chinese markets, and it's precisely the kind of meat market which upset a great deal of the um, natural habitat of many animals, and including of many animals into the diet of people, and of course the kind of research that is being done on different kinds of microorganisms, including viruses and bacteria, that we have this kind of situation on our hands. And I'm sure that in the last few weeks, WhatsApp groups are few WhatsApp groups that I'm on are awash with um, you know, all kinds of forwards about, on the one hand, that, when you're at home and do not have to go out, you have to spend 24 hours in the confines of your home. Then one of the earliest things that I read, that if you can't go out, then go within. You go inside and you try to understand who you are, what you really want, what are you here for. It gives you those kind of very profound philosophical questions, and of course the more fun questions and fun things, like being able to spend time with family, and being able to do various things that you didn't, and read everything that you've been piling up that you never managed to read, or do something else. And if you have access to the net, of course the world is at your fingertips, which is, of course, I'm very, very aware, not the case for a majority of people. So I really worry, and really feel terrible about what's going on with people. And this is, in fact, to hold a class on the environment in this context is particularly telling, because what the situation that we are in today is so much a product of the manner in which we have dealt with the environment. So um, we this is a very important time for us to actually think about what is it that we are doing. And for you, as young people who are inheriting this earth, I used to my teacher Randhir Singh, who I may have mentioned in the class, Randhir Saab used to say, Madhurika, I feel so bad that we've messed up the politics so much, because the Communist Party of India had been divided during the time that he was an active member, and then there was the Naxalite movement, and so much upheaval in our country in the 60s, 70s, and we went to university in the early 80s. And he used to say that, I'm so sorry we've messed up all these different, exciting political options for you. We've made such a mess of politics. How are you people going to run this country? How are you going to, what are you inheriting? I feel so bad. And today, when I'm almost at that stage that Randhir Saab was when he taught us, I now feel, man, we've made such a mess of the environment. What kind of technological decisions have we taken? What kind of consumer options have we made? What kind of society have we built? What things have we learned to prioritize? And this is the planet, this is the earth, this is the society we are handing over to the next generation like him. I feel deeply guilty, even though I'm not completely participant in everything that's happened. I was by no means amongst those who took the decisions, but just being part of this world, and at one level, clearly a beneficiary. I'm not one of those who suffered the consequences yet, anyway. I feel terribly complicit in this whole unfairness, in this whole mess. And in a way, many of us try in our own ways to try and see if, there's something we can do to counter it. And we spend whatever time we have, energies we have, resources we have, in trying to actually, you know, um, do something about it, to change it. And well, for whatever it is worth, one makes that effort. But it's very important for every generation to think, okay, what is it that we will take, and what is it that we will not. And this is actually a really important point of reckoning for all of you, which is, I'm sure what you are thinking anyway. And many of you, I think most of you, are very thinking individuals. You are concerned individuals. I'm sure that you would like to make a difference in many ways. Mm, and build up some courage, build up some capacity. And, all I can say is that some of us can just keep trying to do as close to the right thing as possible. At least that effort we owe to ourselves first, and to the planet and to others that we live with. Anyway, that's sort of somewhat uh, um, sort of deep set of reflections, given the kind of situation we are in. And it really came home to me when I sat down, and I'm having to teach for the first time in 35 years without being able to see my students. It's a terrible feeling, I can't tell you. You all know me well by now, so I'm sure you all understand what I'm saying. I've been taking my MPhil classes because that's a much smaller class, and they have a very short time window, and we had to finish their thing. So do you, but uh, in my MPhil class, it's a small optional class, so it's just 6 people. And it was very nice because on Google Hangouts, you can see everybody can, you know, can switch on their cameras and join. And that was so nice because it was at least a substitute. But even there, I really struggled the first, couple of days to get used to the idea that I was not talking to people sitting in front of me. I could feel their presence. I could see their expressions and respond to them. Slowly got better, but this YouTube live, I'll have to get used to it, I suppose. Now I want to, of course, um, I will be. Um, Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the topic people, politics, and the environment. That's the next thing on our schedule, and um, I I thought that today I will at least give you a kind of outline of the lecture. How am I going to, how I propose to deal with the topic that we will be doing today. And I had actually thought that I might just give you a 1 hour lecture on this, but half an hour's gone nearly. So I may not be able to cover everything today. Of course, we'll schedule another class very quickly. Mm, and I will, of course, let you know about that. You will need to tell me, how, if, as and when you have other things scheduled. But I would like to, now that I've started, I think I'd like to do it with a kind of momentum. And practically, if it's okay with you, I can just meet you every day for an hour and complete things. Now, so that way we can make up on the time that we've lost. Um, and also when we do things in a momentum, it's easier to keep track, to understand what's being said, and you can also give me the kind of feedback by email or on the comments box here. um, However, that's the advantage of YouTube. So you can, and if you start reading now, Sargun yesterday had already messaged me and asked me about the readings. So I reckon most of you would have at least had a chance to look at them. अभी हम लोग थोड़ा सा पेस में कर लें, मेरे ख्याल से वही बेहतर रहेगा, और उसको हम कंप्लीट करने की तरफ बात कर सकते हैं. Of course, I have to share with you that in my excitement of setting it up with you and also, connecting and so on and so forth, I completely forgot to inform Rinki and Manu that I was doing these classes. I'm nuts, really. Too much is going on. It's too different. So today, I'm sure they will not be happy with me. for doing this. Um, so I will message, I will talk to them today and bring them on board, of course, and I'm sure they can join from home. Should be no problem for them. And we will, schedule things to everyone's convenience and we carry this on. ठीक है. तो जितने भी लोग, अच्छा ये बताइए कि ये सब लोग जो जिन्होंने मुझे सब वेरी काइंडली यस मैम भेजा, यही सब लोग ऑनलाइन हैं या अभी लाइव स्ट्रीम में 26 लोग दिख रहे हैं मुझे. 26 ही लोग हैं क्या? क्योंकि मुझे तो आलोक ने कहा था और लोग होंगे. एनीवे जितने भी लोग हैं आई सपोज वो लोग बात भी सुन सकते हैं. But how would you know how many people are there? Everybody's in their own homes. I understand that. Okay, we'll take a call later and find out how many people actually were there during the live stream and others who are depending on listening to it later. Okay, so for this people, politics, and environment, we are going to have the following kind of structure. Um, one that of course, as always, we start with the kind of historical structure of, sorry, 11 बजे से टाइम दिया था इसलिए अभी कम स्टूडेंट्स हैं. नहीं 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 नहीं. Environment class, not public ad. This is the environment class. So that's why, no, I know, but then even in the environment class, there are about 90 people, 90, 97 people. So that's why, and many people don't attend otherwise. But I thought on the YouTube live there would be more people. But that's all right. Maybe it'll take time to settle down, and we can sort of send the word around. Anyway, I can't see you, so I shouldn't bother with how many people are responding on the chat window. Okay, so the structure is that I will be talking about the historical context. How is it that we began to think about? How do we begin to think about people, politics, and the environment? And I mean, mostly mean in the post-colonial context. Of course, the relationship between people, politics, and environment became more clear, more apparent, and in terms of a political mobilization to kind of form in the post-colonial period, mm, um, they as environmental movements, really. And we'll be talking about that, why that is the case, and so on. You must have some idea, perhaps, um, in terms of the what you call it, the social movements that you would have studied. Some of you would have studied social movements at the bachelor's level already. You would have some idea, and of course, everyone thinks environmental movements means Chikku Andolan. We are going to go way beyond that, hopefully, and we'll talk about other kinds of issues. But in the post-colonial period, we find an articulation, but there is a background to that. Why is it comes that way, and so on. Of course, as we discovered last time, when we were talking about history and environment, because this is an interdisciplinary course, that we found that environmental historians are talking more and more about what exactly happened to the environment. Mm. And definitely, colonialism had a very, very powerful impact on the environment. But excuse me, that was more like a relationship, a changing equation between the people and the environment as a result of interventions by the state, the colonial state. And so, in the post-colonial period, India inherits two aspects, at least. One, it inherits the colonial states' ravaging of the environment, of which, so we are going to talk about that historical context. The second is that we will look at um, how we can view the relationship between people, politics, and the environment. Um, there are at least two ways that I would see it. One is what were the different kinds of mobilizations around the issues of the environment in post-colonial India that did happen. So from the 70s onward, we find There's Chipko Andolan, then there is, of course, the Navada Bachao Andolan, and so on. So those mobilizations, that's one. The second aspect of how the relationship between people, politics, and the environment can be viewed can be from understanding the positions of state policy on the environment and how that would impact people, you know. So different kinds of state policy. So this is the second aspect. The first aspect was the historical context. The second aspect is the two respects in which the relationship between people, politics, and the environment can be viewed. In that second point, on the two aspects, we are saying that there are two different kinds of ways in which we can understand. One is to see what kind of mobilization, so that's what is happening from the ground, how are people mobilizing around issues of the environment, and the other is the position of state policy, which is in a sense on the top. What is the state deciding about the environment and how that impacts people, right? And the third major point that we are going to talk about is the interpretation of this relationship. Different people have interpreted this relationship in different ways. Some we are already familiar with, and some we are going to be talking about. Okay? So there are three parts of this lecture, right? So to then now begin with the historical context. I was saying to you that the when India becomes independent, and we are going to be focused mostly on post-colonial India, but we need to understand that it inherits two things from the time before. Number one, the colonial state and what it did to the environment. The impact of the colonial state's policies, its perspectives on what it wanted from this colony, what it was going to give to the colony, etc. So that colonial state's policy. The second was what kind of ambition, what kind of values did we inherit from the anti colonial movement that were going to be the guiding principle of post-colonial, guiding principle of post-colonial policy. So here we are. Sorry, Soumya, you're saying this is the public ad link? Oh my God. This is so crazy. I was so careful. Give me a second. I thought, no, beta. This, as far as I'm concerned, uh, sorry. Soumya, just are you confused or am I actually confused? Just confirm with me. Alpana, you're saying this is the environment class, but have I used the right link or not? Will someone just confirm in the comments, please? I suppose there will be some hiccups in the first uh, thing of doing this. Whoa, I'm giving the environment lecture on the public ad link. This is the administrative link. Okay. So I should, it is appearing on the admin theory as well. It is completely fine, man. You switched. Just inform in the group. This is the public ad link. Okay. Sorry about this. Huh? I don't know. I think I'm sorry. Should I end the stream and should I end the stream and then switch? Should I uh, should I switch channels? It's fine. Are you sure? Oh dear. Fortunately, at least it's the same class. It is okay. Okay, you can continue. Okay. Except that when I do the public ad class, I'll have to also continue on this link, is it? And then let this one go on. Okay. 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 All right. Save this live if I can. Ah. What does that mean? Okay. I'll try to save live. I won't end the stream and I'll see what I can do. Okay? All right. All right. Okay. Uh, I'll have to do this again. All right. So I was saying to you that the post-colonial state inherited two things. One was the colonial state's policies, and the second was the ambitions of the anti-colonial movement. Now we all know. So let's talk about the colonial state first, which is that the colonial state um, was basically here to use the resources of the colony for its own benefit. Let's have no uh, doubt about that. A very important point that this was the industrialization was happening in England, and the resources for that industrialization were being taken from India. So if you look at all the different policies that they undertook in the initial stages, when their textile industry was developing and they needed indigo, the dye, they uh, forced farmers to switch from crop food grain cultivation to indigo cultivation. We all know that story. Then, when a very important new food that was created, which was sugar. Sugar required sugarcane plantation, and the British the colonial powers brought sugarcane plantation at a plantation level and converted lands which were growing all kinds of other crops into sugarcane land, and all of that was used for um, setting up factories, and then they also spent money on research on better kinds of sugarcane, etc. So that's a whole story as well. One of your seniors, I think I must have told you, Arun Singh, is doing a very important thesis on that, very interesting thesis on that. So, so there's sugarcane as well. Then, of course, there's rubber, there's tea, there's coffee, um, so many crops. You know, the entire agricultural pattern was changed by, not entire, but in very significant ways. The agricultural patterns were changed by the colonial state. And you had, you know, this was in addition to the kind of impact they had on the forests. The fact that they just cut down forests and planted certain kinds of trees which give sturdy wood, which is what was used to build railway sleepers. I mean, these things are well known, well documented. And I just want to say one very important thing, very apposite, very, relevant at this point in our vicious politics today. One of the things we must remember that, the colonial state was very different from any other rulers we had on this one particular point, which was that they were taking resources out of this country to build their country somewhere else. No other rulers in this country took the resources out. They ruled, but the resources remained here. What they built was here. They lived here and they died here. This is the significant difference. And when we even look at the environment, very important impact that's why they had on the environment. Because they simply denuded, you know, nature, natural resources from here. They just took them away. And while, you would say that plantations and all, they planted, but remember that they planted and drew all of those resources into an international economy which was created by them. They created the monopolies, they took the products, the prices of those products. Till date, we are not the ones deciding the price of tea and coffee in the world. Okay, coffee is not our major product, but tea is. We don't decide the price of tea. Why? Because the managing agencies that used to manage during the colonial period, they continued to do that in the post-colonial period because you studied that in international political economy, or you will be studying it. Um, so the entire world international economic order was created by the colonial state, and which is what we continue to suffer from even today. Yet we've fought it, we're trying to fight it, and many things we've done which are good over the years. Um, that's a different question. But they created an order which survived into the post colonial period. So even when they left, that order survived. And the use of natural resources was absolutely crucial to this because the Industrial Revolution nowhere in the world was possible unless this kind of extensive use of natural resources is possible because capitalism, industrialization, all of them were actually dependent. The whole paradigm of industrial development was vested in the whole question of using natural resources. And so that proved to be a very important, important component of the impact of colonial policy on us. Then, so that's one aspect. The other aspect is um, in terms of the values and the norms that we inherited through the anti-colonial struggle. Uh, two very distinct streams. You're aware of this. I just want to do it in a kind of recap. One is that uh, we extricated ourselves from colonialism at a time when the Industrial Revolution was ascendant in Europe, and the kind of prosperity that came from the Industrial Revolution dazzled the whole world. And of course, the power that uh, uh, sorry, yeah, someone said, uh, Mohit is saying that opium production to enhance tea trade with China. Yes, but opium production, absolutely. That was the case. Very important. If you read Amitav Ghosh's trilogy, that gives you a fascinating picture of what opium did to people and merchants in India, merchants in China. And in fact, opium production destroyed both Indian merchants and Chinese merchants. The only people to benefit from that were the British and the other European traders. And of course, the Europeans fought bitterly amongst themselves. That was a different matter. But it destroyed us, that's for sure, in many ways. So, this is, so that was the colonial state. And I was saying that we became an independent entity with the ambition of doing away with poverty, bringing in prosperity, And of course, throughout the anti-colonial struggle, people were reminded constantly that we were an extremely prosperous, uh, you know, land, before the colonizers came. And this prosperous land needed to be restored to its glory at one level, and on the other, it needed to be actually, um, it needed to be able to compete, be equal the uh, rest of the developed world, so to say. And this was, an ambition that we felt that we had so much potential that was destroyed by the colonizers. If you remember Dadabhai Naoroji, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, Rajni Palmdar, all of them talking about. So all of them were writing during the colonial period. So we were very aware that we had the potential to be something significantly different, much better. And this we needed to actually um, we needed to aspire to at as a part of the post-colonial enterprise. So this was one very significant stream that we inherited. But a very important part of the anti-colonial struggle was also the Gandhian idea of what India could aspire to. The fact that India could actually aspire to, um, you know, the kind of society that was not given into the entire um, dream of the industrialized world. Because we must remember that in Europe, throughout the period of industrialization itself, there were a lot of people who were very critical of what was going on. And that this path for the human civilization could not possibly last. It was not sustainable, though they didn't use the word sustainable then as much as we use it now. But they did feel that this was not the right way to go. Um, Gandhi inherited those ideas from Voltaire, uh, from Tolstoy, all these philosophers of Europe who were critical of the path of industrialization. And Gandhi believed that yes, while colonization had destroyed us, we had the capacity at the ground level to create, uh, to create spaces of prosperity for people, to create spaces of equality, to create spaces in which people lived in harmony with nature rather than try to conquer nature. So that critique was very much part of Gandhian understanding. But like all hegemonic ideas and ideas that challenge them, clearly the industrialization idea was the hegemonic idea of that time. And Gandhi's ideas were uh, were coming from the margins, were coming from a point of critique, but uh, they seemed, uh, they seemed unnatural. They seemed, they had a chaotic, um, sort of element to them, and so because he had that stature in the anti-colonial period, because people respected him hugely, they could not completely deny the significance of his ideas. And there were many people within the Congress party at that time. The Congress was like an umbrella organization always. It included lots of people who really didn't even agree with the leadership sometimes. So for instance, the Congress Socialist Party had a lot of people who thought very differently. So someone like Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, I don't know how many of you know about her, But Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay was a Gandhian, was a socialist, who believed that it was very necessary for the huge knowledge base, the skill base that we had in this country of the artisan who could produce so many different things, that needed to be preserved because it would prove to be extremely productive and important in the long run. Now, this kind of uh, position was held very strongly by many people. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay was a very important emblem of that position, but there were many people who believed that. Many people who believed that cooperative unions were very important. So the Indian Cooperative Union was formed in the early 50s and so on. So that's why we have state policy that includes two what seem to be pretty contradictory kind of positions actually with respect to what ultimately happened to be an impact on the environment. So one dominant, even hegemonic idea of modern industry and all of its most sort of the most productive, capital intensive, technology intensive kind of phase of industrialization, which was one path. And then there was the other path, which was the Gandhian and which was skill based, knowledge based at the local level, at a much smaller level. So the industrial route was the route of centralization, of large scale projects, of bringing people together and resources at one place, creating things in large numbers, and going by the capitalist understanding of economies of scale. And the Gandhian idea, in a sense, is about economy at a lower scale. It is about production at decentered places and so on. And to, through this course, one of the things that I would want you to strongly think about is to think about a path of progress, path of prosperity, which is not necessarily completely wedded to the idea of this hegemonic industrialization idea. Okay, so what we've managed to do is to just start with the first part. We said that there will be three parts to this topic. We've managed to talk about the first part. We've talked about the background. We've had some hiccups in starting this class. But I'm going to stop it now, so that we can begin with the second part, whenever we meet next. But if somebody could confirm with me whether I should not end the stream and just go into the public ad class in about 10 minutes. I'd need to take a break, and then just continue on this. What shall I say? What do you say? Can you just send me some comments, please, as to whether I should just pause for the moment and then just come back and continue, because this is the pub ad link. I should. Divesh is saying that I should just continue on this link. Is that right? Continue here. Okay. All right. That's very useful. Thank you so much. So, but I'm just going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to reorganize a few things, and then I'm going to continue. Okay. Pause and continue here. All right. So, I'll just shut my computer. No, that's all, and other people can join in. All right. Okay. So thank you very much for joining the environment class. But I suppose those who are in the environment class will just stay on and other people will join. Yeah, I realize that. I'm just going to close my computer for a minute. So don't think that I've gone away anywhere. I won't close the link. That should be okay, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, so hello everyone. I suppose this is the administrative theory group. I mean, that's mostly the entire class, right? Good morning. Um, so I'm very glad to meet everyone. I can't say I'm very glad actually. I do not like teaching online. This is a very difficult thing for me. As you know, for me, eye contact is very important. Being able to see everybody's faces is very important. Then I know, whether things are making sense or not. So this YouTube live is convenient, but it is not good. So I should tell you that I am doing this because at least I feel that there'll be some continuity, though we had a long gap, and it'll give you some way of actually understanding what we would like to do, what you know, the topics that I have sent you already, actually, that you will be able to follow the notes. I expect that you would have actually uh, seen those. I had sent you Weber and I had sent you Marx. Yeah. So what I'm going to do today is simply pick up what I had sent you for Weber and take you through what I had sent you. Then that would make a lot of sense, when you are trying to understand, make sense of what I had sent you. So I'm going to uh, just one sec. I have made some confusion. Hmm. Sorry, this first day, I'm going to take some time to settle into these things. I had sent you the outline on WhatsApp, right? I seem to have lost it for some reason. I'm so sorry. Something has happened here. Uh, just bear with me for 2 minutes. I will just figure this out. Finding a connect between my phone and my computer is something else. Uh, mm, there's some confusion. Can someone just confirm to me that uh, I had sent you through Puja. I had sent you the outline on Weber. Can someone just confirm to me on the comment box, please? I don't know what I've some confusion here. What have I done with it? This is so ridiculous. It's a very, very long. Okay, Shuki is saying that you can send me that outline I sent you. Yes, can you send it to me? I seem to have lost it somewhere. I'm so sorry. I thought it was right here in my folder. Yes, please, Shuki, Anushka, anyone, can you just send me the outline? I sent you a very, very long document, right? Oh man, why will it not load? Are you sending it by email or? All of you don't send me beta. Any one person is good enough. Everyone doesn't need to send it to me. Oh, actually, okay. I now get it. I am now looking for just the, yeah, okay. I got confused between what I had actually sent you and what I thought I had done. Okay. Okay. Um, if you remember, um, uh, okay. I'm so sorry. There's if you look at the outline that I had sent you, you will find that I have said that there's going to be a kind of standard um, format in which we are going to understand the three thinkers on bureaucracy. That's the first thing that I'm going to be teaching you, right? So I'm doing Weber, then I will do Marx, and then we will discuss Niskanen. Um, I don't have, I won't be able to check with you whether you've been able to look at your readings or not, whether you've been able to make any sense at all or not. So I will just, try to give you an orientation on the issue so that you understand how it is supposed to be done. Um, See, the very first thing you will know when some of you are studying on the environment with me, and you will know that my point of entry into understanding anything is the historical context of whether it is a thinker, whether it is a theory or a concept, whether it is a movement, anything. To understand any politics at any time, you need to look at the context in which that politics was happening. And you then need to go back to the point of origin of those ideas. When a thinker, so we'll focus on how to understand thinkers first. When we look at thinkers, we should remember two things. We remember them because they have offered a very original interpretation, new sets of ideas, or they have given us some very innovative perspective on how to look at certain things, how to look at society, how to look at politics, and so on. But we must remember that those ideas come from a certain context in which they were living. There were already some ideas that were existent, and they were responding to those ideas. They were responding in as much, you can respond in at least two ways. One, you can absorb those ideas and say, they don't really work. And you give a completely opposing set of ideas. The other thing you can do is say, what I get is good, it's very interesting, but we can extend it further. And sometimes you can do a mix of both. So whenever you're trying to understand any thinker, we must try and understand the context so we know what exactly he was thinking, what she wanted to say, whether it was a counter to the already existing set of ideas, it was an extension, it was a bit of both, or whatever. So this has to be our first standpoint, which is what I've said, in the lecture outline for circulation. That lecture outline, I've said that this is the first standpoint. Of course, you would have seen that I have broken down that first standpoint into further parts, but we will come back to it. Then the second standpoint will be what all did the thinker have to offer in detail. Of course, I mean, most thinkers have written a lot, and that we are not necessarily uh, uh, we are not necessarily sort of going to look at the entire body of literature that that person has written. That's impossible. We will pick out a certain part which is particularly relevant for what we are studying, what we want to understand. So we will look at the thinker, but remember that we might pick out what is relevant for us. The thinker was not writing that in isolation. Whatever we find is relevant for us is being stated in the context of things that other things that that person was thinking about or writing about or fretting about, worrying about. So that's why we need to have an overall sense. of what each thinker was writing, and where is it that what we are drawing from that thinker can be located. So that's the second standpoint. And then the third standpoint, of course, is the critique. What is valuable, what has been completely opposed, busted, what still carries on. These are the critical analysis that is going to be explored about um, uh, any particular thing. So, having stated what the broad outline for understanding anything is going to be, I do want to say that the three thinkers that have been identified for us. So, Weber, Marx, and Niskanen are three as different as can be from each other. So, Weber and Marx, so Marx is the oldest actually. He's writing in the 19th century. Weber comes towards the end of Marx's life, really. He starts writing at that time, but he overlaps a little bit with Marx, not only in terms of a lifetime, but in terms of ideas, and yet he's very, very different. And then Niskanen is a 20th century writer. It's very important, as you know, you must know where these people are located because that is what is going to help us understand, um, the context, which is going to be the first standpoint. And remember that, students of politics in history, of course, it's not about knowing dates. It's about knowing the time. And it's about understanding what is it that shapes their ideas. तो एक चीज़ मुझे अचानक ध्यान आया कि सुबह से मैं बात कर रही हूँ और हिंदी में बोलना ही भूल गई मैं. आई थिंक दिस इज़ वेरी कंफ्यूजिंग. सो आई एम सॉरी. मैं अभ्यस्त तरीके से जिस तरह से बात करती हूँ क्लासरूम में घुस के ना एक अलग माहौल होता है, आप सब दिख रहे होते हैं और हमारी सोच का एक प्रवाह होती है. यहाँ पर तो मतलब एक जगह बैठ के और ऑफिस रूम में बैठ के और कुछ दिमाग खास ठीक से चल नहीं रहा है. तो हम इस चीज़ को कहें कि हम तीन नज़रिए से किसी भी चिंतक को समझते हैं. एक उनका संदर्भ, जिस समय में वो लिख रहे हैं, उस समय की सोच क्या है, उस समय में राजनीति क्या हो रही है, समाज में क्या हो रहा है, ये किस तरह के बदलाव हो रहे हैं, नए विचार और कौन से हैं समाज में उस समय. तो किसी भी चिंतक का यही संदर्भ होता है और हर चिंतक जो है वो इस अपने सोच को बनाता है जो उस वक्त विद्यमान है समाज में. सोच के बतौर, परिवर्तन के बतौर, आपके अलग अलग कुछ राजनीति जिस तरह से परिवर्तित हो रही है उसके बतौर बहुत सारे परिवर्तन हो रहे हैं जिसके संदर्भ में हर चिंतक को हमें समझने की जरूरत है. तो सबसे पहले हम हर चिंतक का संदर्भ समझेंगे. दूसरा हमारा जो पक्ष होगा वो है कि चिंतक के कौन से ऐसी सोच थी, कौन से ऐसे कुछ विचार थे जो हम समझना चाहते हैं. उसमें वो एक उसकी खास महत्व है. अब हम याद रखें कि हर चिंतक को एक चीज़ नहीं लिखता है. हम ब्यूरोक्रेसी समझना चाह रहे हैं, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि वेबर केवल ब्यूरोक्रेसी पे लिख रहे थे. आप लोग ना जब एग्जाम में लिखते हैं कई बार लोग ये मिस कि वो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण काम उनका ब्यूरोक्रेसी पे था और हमारे लिए सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है. हमारे लिए सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है, हाँ ये हो सकता है, लेकिन उनके काम में ब्यूरोक्रेसी का हिस्सा बहुत छोटा सा था. तो इस बात को हमें याद रखने की जरूरत है कि उनके काम में उनका काम क्या था जिसके अंतर्गत जिस चीज को हम पढ़ रहे हैं वो कहाँ पर आप उस चीज को रखते हैं और बाकी काम जो था उसका कुछ संपर्क था इस पर्टिकुलर विचार पे, इस विशेष विषय पर क्या संपर्क था, इस चीज को हमें समझने की जरूरत है. लेकिन इसको कुछ गहराई में समझेंगे कि जब हम ब्यूरोक्रेसी को पढ़ रहे हैं तो उस पे वेबर के क्या विचार थे, कैसे उन्होंने सोचा, क्या लिखा, क्या विशेषता थी इत्यादि। तो उसी तरह से मार्क्स उस तरह से निष्कर्ष। और तृतीय नज़रिया हमारे लिए रहेगा कि हर चिंतक का की जो आलोचना है बाकी लोगों ने किया, उनके समय में लोगों ने किया, बाद में किया, और उन सब चिंतक मैंने आलोचनाओं के बावजूद कोई एक ऐसा विचारक हो जिसके विचार आज तक महत्वपूर्ण बने रहे, तो उससे उस चिंतक का महत्व पूरी तरह से हमें समझ में आए। तो हम जब इन तीनों चीज़ों को जोड़ते हैं, तब हम देखते हैं कि, और हर एक विचारक को देखते हैं, हर एक चिंतक को इन तीन नज़रियों से देखते हैं, फिर हम एक जो हमारी जो समझ बनती है कि लोग प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था जो है, पिछले 200 साल में प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था किस तरह से, उसकी समझ किस तरह से बदली है, और वो आज तक हम जिस तरह से प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था को समझते हैं उसके लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण। ठीक है, तो ये अगर हमारा एक ब्रॉड आउटलाइन है, तो इस चीज़ को हम जब अप्लाई करते हैं लेवल पे, उसमें हम क्या पाते हैं और कैसे, ये हमें देखना है। So we begin with understanding Weber in terms of his context. So three things in the context. You have the outline in front of you, I hope. You should be able to see that, which is number one, that Weber as a public intellectual in Prussian Germany. You all understand Prussian Germany? This is the unified Germany of the 19th century. And all the different smaller kingdoms of Germany were brought together and created into one big entity. The idea being to have a very powerful presence in Europe, as opposed to France on the one hand and Russia on the other. So Prussia was in the middle of Europe, and a very, very powerful middle. And Prussia also was looking to, just creating this nation state under a very important, sort of aristocracy and monarchy. A slight contradiction in terms, but indeed that is how these things evolved. And so at this time, ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity are evolving in a very, very significant way, and uh, all kinds of, um, you know, all kinds of thoughts and reflections are coming into the public sphere continuously. It helps that the printing press was slowly coming into its own. A lot of literature was being circulated around. The level of reading and writing had gone up. So people like Max Weber actually writing on many of these issues made a huge difference to the way in which people were thinking and the way in which the institutions evolved at this time. And we need to remember that Weber is coming from is coming from a tradition that Germany already had a very important intellectual tradition. Since you've got Hegel and Kant and you've got Marx, all of them in the preceding generations to Weber. So he was uh, following a very, very illustrious tradition. And you will see that all of these people do not agree politically. They all have very different positions and so on. But they constitute a very important lineage of political and sociological thought. Of course, we remember Weber as a sociologist, but remember that the 19th century is when sociology as a discipline is evolving, and Joachim Emil Durkheim in France, Auguste Comte, Italy, France. All of these people are slowly, writing about society, trying to work out how to interpret society in a scientific way. And so Weber comes in that very illustrious tradition, and he is a public intellectual. He writes he writes in the public realm as well as in the intellectual realm. He's at the university and he's a teacher. So prolific writer. He's written a huge amount of work. And a lot of this work was actually in the public domain, which is what we need to, uh, you know, uh, we need to understand what is, you know, what is that significance that he enjoys in the in Prussian Germany. So he's a very important uh, writer of that time. The second very important thing is when we try to understand the context. So one context, one aspect of the context is that he's a public intellectual, a very influential thinker and writer of his time. So he's coming after Marx, and Marx is a huge presence already, not only in Germany but in France. He's a presence in Britain, and Marxist ideas are being articulated not only academically but also in terms of the पॉलिटिकल मोबिलाइजेशन तो यूरोप का जो समाजवादी आंदोलन है सोशलिस्ट रेवोल्यूशन इन यूरोप समाजवादी सोच है चिंतन है वो एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रूप से 19वीं सदी के आखिर तक जो है एक उभर के आता है और उस संदर्भ में वेबर को समझना है कि वेबर इन सब लोगों के विचारों से प्रभावित भी हैं लेकिन वो एक अपने नए विचार भी लेकर आने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं और अ, उनका एजेंडा हालांकि पॉलिटिकल मोबिलाइजेशन के लिए लिखना नहीं है जैसे मार्क्स का था उनका एजेंडा अलग था उनका ये था यूनिवर्सिटी में वो काम करते थे वहाँ पे वो लेक्चर्स भी दे रहे थे लेकिन वो राजा के काफी करीब भी थे वो एक समझ किस तरह से बना सकते हैं वो बनाने की जरूरत थी और जो दूसरी बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात कि ये समय है 19वीं सदी है जब पूंजीवाद का बिल्कुल चढ़ाव की तरफ है बहुत तेजी से यूरोप में पूंजीवाद की तरफ औद्योगिकरण के जरिए बदलाव आ रहा है और जो भी यूरोपियन समाज को समझने की जिम्मेवारी ले रहे हैं वो उनके लिए इस चीज को इस नए परिवर्तन को समझना उसमें किस तरह से हम योगदान कर सकते हैं कैसे हम उसको समझ सकते हैं उसकी दिशा को क्या हम प्रभावित कर सकते हैं उस दिशा को हम बदल सकते हैं या ये जो नए परिवर्तन हो रहे हैं ये एक आर्थिक संदर्भ में आर्थिक रेल में जो है वो हो रहा है सो द changes that are happening in Europe at this time are happening at the level of the economic in a very significant way. That is the significant area in which the changes are happening. So for many thinkers, it becomes very important to understand what is the essence of of this of this transformation, economic transformation. What are its implications for politics? What are its implications for the kind of society we are trying to create? And so Weber's contribution, like Marx's, is a very important contribution to understand the structure of this change. What kind of society is coming? And how is it going to be changing in the near future? And what kind of governance is required for this kind of change? So the relationship between the state and the people. So the people are not a homogeneous entity. The people are a very heterogeneous entity in which there are different classes who are participating in this transformation in very, very different ways. So Weber's contribution is in trying to interpret what those changes are and how that is going to impact the manner in which governments function, what kind of state will emerge, etc. Now that's the larger context in which he is writing, and There's no space and time to go into all those details. But it's very it's important to understand that context is where Weber's understanding of bureaucracy is located, and that is something we need to remember. तो मैंने जैसे पहले कहा था, ये मत कहिए कि सबसे महत्वपूर्ण काम वेबर का प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था पे था, ऐसा नहीं है। महत्वपूर्ण काम उनका था कि उस समय की यूरोप, जिसमें पूंजीवाद इस तरह से बढ़ रहा था, औद्योगिकरण हो रहा था, समाज औद्योगिकृत हो रहा था, तो उस समाज को कैसे समझा जाए और उस समाज पर की राजनीति कैसे हो और राजनीति कैसे चलाई जा सके, ये उनका काम, जिसके अंतर्गत हम देख रहे हैं कि बहुत महत्वपूर्ण उनकी समझ है वो ब्यूरोक्रेसी। तीसरा, जब हम संदर्भ समझते हैं वैभव का, हमें याद रखना होगा कि वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण कॉन्सेप्ट यूज कर रहे हैं, सिद्धांत यूज कर रहे हैं, जिसके जरिए वो समझा रहे हैं कि ब्यूरोक्रेसी को, प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था को किस तरह से समझ सकते हैं. So the central concepts, all of you are familiar with this, so I don't have to repeat, but I will quickly just explain. Number one, three kinds of authority. What are these three kinds of authority? Everybody knows, I know that. Traditional, charismatic, and universal. But I'm going to spend 5 minutes trying to explain what these are and why is it so important to understand bureaucracy. So, authority. Why is authority so important? For students of politics, particularly, understanding authority is important in two respects. One, how is it different from power? And second, what kinds of authority are possible in different concepts, in different contexts, in different societies? And when we are talking about the bureaucracy, what kind of authority do we have in mind? So, to go back to the three kinds of authority, he talks about traditional authority, where traditional authority is about any institution in society which has been handed down, which has been followed as a norm in society, as a source of authority. So it is understood in patriarchal families that the patriarch, eldest male member of the family, is going to have the largest authority. Excuse me. So this is the male member holds the traditional authority. When you have a religious order, simply religious order, कोई पंथ है, कोई मठ है, वहाँ पर क्या होता है, जो भी उसके गुरु है, जो सबसे बड़े हैं, वो ट्रेडिशनली उन्हीं के authority. That's a traditional authority, actually. In society, there are many such different institutions, small and big, which have authority vested in one person and which is understood, acknowledged, accepted by everyone because that's the tradition. So the source of authority is in that tradition. But I forgot one very crucial thing, and this is what happens. You know, I've lost one particular point, which is the difference between power and authority. There's always power in society, and power can be held by anyone in society. Whatever works in that society at that point in time, whether it's money or it's muscle power um, or it's just a sheer control over others, through your words or whatever. So you can have power in many different ways. And of course, there's power of violence, very important. Excuse me. But when power is exercised over others, such that others are bound to accept, that gives you authority. तो धक्का करके तो किसी के पास भी शक्ति हो सकती है समाज में, लेकिन जब किसी की शक्ति की वैधता हो, legitimacy, then that becomes authority. This is the very crucial difference between. And the sources of legitimacy can come from three different sources. This is the point that he's trying to say. So, in a traditional authority, the source of legitimacy is tradition. वैधता का आधार जो है, उसके आधार पर अलग अलग तरह की अथॉरिटी हो सकती है. तो वैधता के तीन स्रोत हो सकते हैं. पहला स्रोत यह है कि पारंपरिक किसी भी समाज में, पितृसत्तात्मक समाज में पिता हो सकता है, सबसे बड़े जो पुरुष हैं परिवार में उनका हो सकता है, किसी मठ में सबसे बड़े गुरु जो हैं उनका हो सकता है, इत्यादि इत्यादि. तो परंपरा अपने आप में वैधता देती है किसी किसी तरह की authority. The second is the kind of authority which derives from some people's ability to actually influence others in terms of their thought, in terms of action, and simply, influencing someone so deeply that they feel bound to actually accept what you say. And that can translate into very, very important sources of power, but also sources of authority. So, charismatic authority is that where the legitimacy of the authority comes from the charisma of the leader. The charisma of the leader can be, from simply the kinds of thoughts they have, the kind of teachings they have, philosophy they have, their ability to guide you, or indeed their ability to solve people's problems, their ability to give people some kind of direction. So that constitutes charisma, and that charisma can be the basis of authority. So charisma legitimizes somebody's power, and because people accept that charisma as a legitimate source of power, so therefore that becomes the basis of the authority. Now, in the light of these two, it becomes really important to understand legal rational authority, which is that जब हम देखते हैं कि करिश्मा के आधार के एक वैधता बन सकती है, परंपरा वैधता बन सकती है. आधुनिक समाज में अनुराग सिंह, यू जस्ट जॉइन द क्लास. कौन से सब्जेक्ट की है? आपने जो लिंक फॉलो किया है वो कौन सा लिंक है बेटा? दिस इज एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव थ्योरी क्लास. And I've been taking this class now for more than 40 minutes. Okay, I shouldn't look at the comments. I always get distracted by people who come in late to the class. So here too, I should probably avoid looking at the comments. Right. So हम ये कह रहे थे कि इसके संदर्भ में हम जब लीगल रैशनल अथॉरिटी को समझते हैं, it's very, very important that the way in which European society changed from the 17th century to the 19th century. What exactly was happening? The questioning of the old monarchical order and the sort of evolution of democratic ideals. And this questioning was possible because people were using their sense of reason, their sense of understanding what is right and wrong, their sense of actually questioning the laws that were made by the monarchs, on the basis of which taxes were charged, people were questioned, orders were passed, land revenue was collected, anything, all kinds of systems that had been put in place by monarchs, they were being questioned. And at the same time, people were also beginning to ask that we really need to have um, a say in how governments are functioning. This was a very important sort of, change that happened as a result of the uh, kind of political turmoil that came out of this kind of question. Of course, the political turmoil is also related to very, very important social changes, economic changes. You know about those things. Had I been in the classroom, actually, I spent a lot of time trying to understand the evolution of capitalism, which is what gives rise or enables a very, very important transformations of democracy. And after a point, both capitalism and democracy, liberalism and capitalism, feed into each other in terms of an evolution. One contributes to the other. So this kind of evolution has been happening in European society over 2 centuries by the time Weber is beginning to write. And he says that now the rational is something that is overwhelmingly uh, the driver of everything in society. If you can explain something by reason, if you can demand something by reason, and because reason is common to everyone, and reason can be debated, reason can be talked amongst each other between people, तो जब समाज में इस तरह से बदलाव आता है कि एक सोच के जरिए लोग आपस में बातचीत कर रहे हैं उस चीज को और जो भी समाज में होना है समाज में जो परिवर्तन हो रहा है उस चीज को लोग आपस में एक आपस में वार्तालाप, आपस में बहस और बहुत बड़े परिवर्तन के जरिए उनके जरिए आप बहुत बड़े परिवर्तन कर रहे हैं। इतना तक कि पूरे जो पुराने जितने भी मोनार्किकल ऑर्डर्स थे वो सब खत्म हो रहे हैं, समझ हो रहा है, बदलाव हो रहा है. So therefore, the democratization of European politics, that is a very important that becomes a very important. Abhishek, I've seen your question. I know you just retracted your message, but I had seen your question. I will just come back. I will come back to charismatic authority in a minute. I'll just explain. I'll just finish explaining legal rational authority and then I'll come back to your question. So, so Weber is saying that rational discourse has become the order of the day. And when rational discourse becomes the order of the day, it then becomes the foundation from which all principles, all rules, all laws are created in society, which can be debated and which can be mutually accepted by everyone in society. This is the fundamental transformation. So when we say democratization has happened, Weber argues that the most legitimate means by which we create structures of authority have changed to rational means. And when by rational means we can debate and arrive at laws that are mutually acceptable to everyone, we debate, discuss, disagree, and finally come to either a consensus or we do a majority principle. and we arrive at laws and principles by which we all agree to be ruled, which is what a constitution is, right? Which is what how laws are passed in democratic countries. So that is what Weber is calling a legal rational. So he says that uh, an authority which is derived from rational thought, which translates into laws. तो नई वैधता अपने लोकतांत्रिक समाज में, लोकतांत्रिक राजनीति में या लोकतांत्रिक समाज में ये है कि आप सोच और तर्क के आधार पर नए तरह के नियम कानून बनाते हैं, और तर्क के आधार पर जब आप नियम कानून बनाते हैं तो आप तर्क का मतलब ही ये होता है कि लोग अपना पक्ष रखते हैं, उसका विपक्ष रखते हैं, आधार पर आप तय करते हैं कि कौन से ऐसे नियम होंगे, कानून होंगे जिनके आधार पर हम सब समाज को चलाएं। तो अगर ये है तो फिर ये वैधता एक वैधता का नया आधार, और वैधता का नया आधार जो है वो तार्किक जो न्याय है, तो न्याय के सिद्धांत है, जो न्याय के सिद्धांत तर्क के आधार पर लिए जाते हैं, उसकी जो एक नई वैधता है उसको वो लीगल रैशनल अथॉरिटी कहते हैं। तो नया अथॉरिटी जो तर्क से आधारित, तर्क पर आधारित नियम कानून जो वो बनते हैं, वो लीगल रैशनल अथॉरिटी। So I think that this is a very so not I think I'm sort of arguing at this point in time that Weber is presenting to us the core principle by which authority is arrived at in modern societies. And this, we will see, is a very important part of how the bureaucracy is understood. And then, because of this, the character of the bureaucracy is a particular way, and we will discuss that when we are talking about his ideas on bureaucracy. To go back to Abhishek's question, and I find that Bahar is also talking about charismatic authority. So just to point out that yes, of course, charismatic. See, people can be charismatic. Doesn't mean that they have charismatic authority. Authority is always when somebody's charisma is accepted as powerful enough that it can have legitimate control over other people, and people will accept what they say because of their sheer charisma, which is why religious leaders are believed to be sources of charismatic authority. And remember, that's why when the examples are given of charismatic authority, it is almost invariably either political leaders or religious leaders who do not belong to any kind of religious institution or political institution. So why is Gandhi referred to as a charismatic leader? Because Gandhi was never, he was not even elected president of the Communist Party. Jesus, when he started to talk about his ideas, or many of the saints, Meera, what was Meera? She was someone who was a devotee who decided to, in fact, forego whatever sort of authority she could have possibly had as a queen, and as a mendicant, as a बिल्कुल मतलब उस सब व्यवस्था से बाहर निकलकर उन्होंने अपनी बात की। तो ऐसे जब लोग किसी भी व्यवस्था के अंतर्गत नहीं होते, लेकिन उसकी वजह मतलब उनके करिश्मा की वजह से लोग उनकी बात को मानने के लिए, समझने के लिए तैयार हैं। That is why it is charismatic authority, because it is legitimate, because people accept it. And of course, Meera is not always the best example because a lot of people didn't accept Meera. So she didn't have that kind of authority. But when we look at, the understanding of bhakti as a movement, as constituted by certain kinds of people, she's definitely an authority figure in that whole um, sort of, stream of thought or of philosophy. So, in that sense, she's a charismatic authority. So, in any case, charismatic authority is always contested, contentious, and it's not stable in any case. And then charismatic authority, whatever it yields, can then be institutionalized. So Jesus' teachings are institutionalized in the Roman Catholic Church, in the big Protestant orders, and so on and so forth. So by some kind of priestly orders, they are sort of structured into institutions which have certain kinds of authority. The origin is in the charismatic authority of Jesus. So this is what is meant by charismatic authority. So your point is taken. And what made Adolf Hitler a charismatic leader? You really want me to discuss this now? I don't think this is quite the space, but let me quickly refer to the fact. Adolf Hitler came into power. Remember that he was elected by the people. He came into power at a time when Germany was suffering from the ignominy, from the humiliation of having lost the First World War, struggling to recover because they had severe losses. And this man was giving them not only some kinds of solutions, but all political leaders come up to give them solutions. He was also telling them who the common enemy was. This is a very important point. Charismatic leaders will always also tell you, not all maybe, but definitely Hitler, was saying, okay, this is the problem. And sometimes when you are overwhelmed by many problems, whether you are as an individual, as a family, as a society, as a nation, you're overwhelmed by many problems. And someone tells you, ये भी ठीक करना है, ये भी ठीक करना है, ये भी करना है, ये भी ठीक करना है, you know, लगे यार, क्या क्या करें, कैसे ठीक करें? But if someone comes and tells you, I'm telling you, this is the problem, solve this, and so much else will be taken care of. It's much easier. And you want to believe it because you want change, you want something better. And I think that when people give you an easy solution like that, that gives you cause for charisma. And remember, the easy solution that he first gave me was that the Germans had to discover their enormous Aryan capacities. Aryan race is, has enormous capacities, and that capacity has to be built and it has to be enhanced. And if we do that, then it is possible to actually come out of the kind of crisis that we are in. So yes, you're right, Shuki, that charismatic leadership has more of a chance when there is a crisis in society. But then, this is a leadership that can go any which way. So if there is a crisis in society and you need solutions, it's important to see what kind of leaders actually become charismatic leaders in a crisis society. Then what kind of solutions they offer. And Hitler's entire early years were about creating, the strong German race. And their, the sort of militaristic orientation, being completely committed to the larger cause, doing everything. And if you read up a little bit carefully on early Nazi Germany, you will know that. And that then also gets into, it's not only about strengthening yourself, but about vanquishing the enemy. अब वो आप फ्रांस से तो हार गए, इंग्लैंड से हार गए, है ना? तो उस एनिमी का तो कुछ नहीं कर पाए. दूसरा एनिमी ढूंढो जो अपने समाज में आपके समाज को नीचे खींच रहा है. उस एनिमी को ढूंढो, उनको खत्म करो, ताकि फिर आप आपका वर्चस्व हो सकता है. So this is a very important aspect of charismatic leadership. So, okay, let me quickly look at the comments. Faiza is saying, can we say that extraordinary personal abilities through which one can attract more and more people can be referred to as charismatic authority? See, extraordinary personal abilities contribute to charisma. Whether that would become charismatic authority depends on a large number of factors. And most important is the fact of whether people are going to accept your charisma as the necessary one to provide leadership to people, whether people are going to believe in what you're going to say. Shubham is saying what charisma means here, until and unless a person is not associated with legitimacy and authority, his or her charisma is not fruitful for society. Hitler, Osama were also called charismatic. See, that's what I wanted to say. Osama was charismatic, and he had authority in a certain realm, whether we like it or not. He had. So, in that sense, it was limited, but he had charismatic authority. But his charismatic authority was also linked to a certain set of principles, ideas, and thoughts, which were part of that society where he was a part of. But Hitler was an elected leader, so he already had authority. No, this is something we have to remember. He was an elected leader, so he had legal rational authority. He had come through proper elections. Uh, then he, in addition, derived, his charisma was about offering, as I was saying to you, all those kinds of qualities of, getting the German people more confident and being able to say that, no, absolutely, we are capable. And this humiliating loss is not something we have to take. It doesn't have to always remain with us. We can overcome this humiliation. So, yes, it was fruitful for German society to that extent. That's what the Germans thought, that this is going to be the deliverance. This is going to be the reason why we are going to overcome that humiliation of the First World War. Pragya is saying, do elections sometimes just end up becoming a platform for the two or more charismatic persons to compete for power? Yes, but remember that it becomes the platform also because the large number of people who are involved in giving legitimacy to them are providing that context. Remember that legitimacy or charisma is not only about the people who carry the charisma, but others who are believing in that. Very important. So, Diksha is saying populist slogan for the many and not for the few will be traced as a charismatic leadership because there will be a minority section in each charismatic. No, in each charismatic leadership, there's a minority section means what? I'm not sure I understand that because charismatic leadership is usually associated with just one person actually, really. So that's very limited. And I think many of you are trying to link with what is happening today. It does not work exactly in that way. And remember, constitutionally elected authorities may be charismatic. Does not mean that is what is charismatic leadership. Charismatic leadership is where even if there is no constitutional mandate, no legal support for that leadership, even then, someone's leadership is accepted. That is when it would be the core charismatic leadership. Fear from traditional norms need to leads to accept people as charismatic leader. I am not sure I understand what that means. Huh. See, charisma, this is what I want to explain. All the other comments that are coming, so I'm going to also limit the discussion on charismatic authority a little bit because we need to progress and move on to the rest of the discussion. But I want to explain that leaders having charisma is different from charismatic leadership, charismatic authority. Leaders having charisma, yes. After all, a leader with more charisma is more likely to be elected, yes. But when they are elected and they are acting in their elected capacity, they are acting as a result of that constitutional mandate they have, not because of their charisma. Because of their charisma, they may be able to carry out many programs or policies. That's a different question. But remember that their authority comes from the constitution or the electoral process that has given them that source. Charismatic leadership, as Weber explains, is where the only source of leadership, the only source of legitimacy of that leadership is the sheer charisma, nothing else. So the authority that that person commands is vested simply through that charisma. So, Mahima, if you're saying that, if you're asking whether they overlap or not, they could, but not when we are talking about types of authority. Types of authority are, as Weber is trying to explain, and this brings me to the next conceptual point that I want to talk about. It's related to it. So, Suman, your question that legitimacy is a factor which differentiates authority from power, but can we say that this legitimacy itself cannot be justified on moral grounds? Of course, that is why the basis of legitimacy changes. After all, until the end of the 19th century, even monarchs and their legitimacy on divine right to rule, that was considered fine. Yeah, but when that is questioned, that legitimacy itself was being questioned on moral grounds that no, one person or one family cannot have control over the rest of the country. And that is when monarchy gives way to republicanism. You're absolutely right. So, yes, of course, that happens. And we need to understand, I can see that this whole question on charismatic leadership has taken off. Okay, Shuki, understood about charismatic leadership, but how can there be legal rational authority when the people's rationality itself is bound? Remember that what you think is a problem with the people's rationality would be actually just a shift in the rationality, which we need to understand. Or that shift in the rationality has been caused by certain reasons which then need to be tackled, which need to be addressed, and possibly need to be changed. But you cannot simply question if people's rationality itself is being. You simply cannot. You need to question, but then you need to also work on the range of issues that are influencing people's rationality. So it's a good point, but it's something that we can't resolve conceptually or theoretically. It's something that needs to be resolved on the ground, on many different counts. And the debate on rationality is a huge one. So what looks rational at one point in time? What looks perfect? What seems to be the dominant rationality? Maybe something that many of us find very, very difficult to accept and understand. And that contestation in society is crucial to democratic discourse. Okay, more and more questions. I'm very happy. There are more questions on YouTube than there are usually in the class, which is very nice. Okay, I'm going to take Janak's point last because that's the point that's on here, and then I will move on to the next concept. NYU professor Rahul Sagar said India is undergoing slow motion revolution under charismatic leadership of Modi. Would you agree? At the moment, I will not even get into this discussion because this is not the charismatic authority I was talking about. I was talking about charismatic authority. I was not talking about charismatic leadership. I emphasized this point a few minutes ago as well. They're two very different things. And we are not talking about charismatic leadership. We're talking about charismatic authority and how Amrita, as charismatic authority, the only way to get legal rational authority in a democracy? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Weber was in fact explaining that different kinds of authority exist in different contexts. Charisma may be there, but charismatic authority is different. I'm trying to emphasize this again and again. Okay? All right. So we will, sort of go on to the next point. We've had lots of discussion with charisma, and we can have it again. But thank you very much for so many comments, and you are clearly thinking while I'm talking to you, and that's a very good sign. I hope that it continues when we meet in the classroom as well. Uh, so the other concept, if you remember, I'll just take you back to the discussion. I had said that we will talk about the context in which every thinker is talking about, and Weber's context was first that he is himself a public intellectual in Prussian Germany. Second, that he was writing about the huge transformation of his time, which is capitalism and how European society is becoming capitalist, what is happening, what are the core reasons. And his understanding of bureaucracy needs to be located in that larger explanation on capitalism that he's offering. The third point that we were discussing is that that is in terms of the context of understanding Weber's ideas are two core ideas. One is the idea about authority, and the other is the idea which I want to discuss now. So when we were discussing authority, we talked about three kinds of authority: traditional, charismatic, and legal. Now let's talk about the second concept, which is crucial to the understanding of Weber's ideas on bureaucracy, which is the idea of ideal time. Want to say right at the beginning, and I hope everyone's listening very carefully, that the ideal type is a theoretical construct which is used to analyze, understand what is happening in a society in a limited way. You create a kind of frame of analysis. So the ideal type is that frame of analysis in which you cast a certain kind of understanding that provides that frame. And that becomes the point of reference when you are trying to understand anything in society. It is not the ideal that society should aspire to. That's point number one about ideal type. Point number two, how is the ideal type created? The ideal type is created by looking at the long-term trends in society, the overwhelming trends in society. Long-term, overwhelming. What seems to be the dominant trends in society? तो किसी भी समाज को जब आप देखते हैं तो आइडियल टाइप के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं. आइडियल टाइप क्या है? एक सैद्धांतिक ढांचा जिसके जरिए समाज में जो कुछ भी हो रहा है उसको आप किस तरह से समझ सकते हैं, किस तरह से आप उसका एक ढांचा बना सकते हैं जिसके जरिए किसी भी समाज को आप फिर समझ सकते हैं. पहली बात तो ये एक ढांचा है. ये किसी भी समाज को एक का विश्लेषण या विश्लेषणात्मक तरीके से समझने का जरिया, वो समाज को मूल्यांकन करने का जरिया. It's not to evaluate. It's not a yardstick by which you see. It's not an ideal by which you judge any society. It is a frame by which you analyze society. There are two different things. Okay? तो ये जो ढांचा है इसके जरिए आप किसी भी समाज को का विश्लेषण कर सकते हैं. दूसरी बात क्या है कि ये ढांचा बनता कैसे? बनता ऐसे है कि आप किसी भी समाज को जब आप, ये समाज विज्ञान की बात है, वेबर समाज वैज्ञानिक थे, सोशियोलॉजिस्ट थे, समाजशास्त्री थे, तो वो समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जिस समाज में वो हैं, जिसमें इतने महत्वपूर्ण परिवर्तन हो रहे हैं, परिवर्तनों की धारा क्या है, उन परिवर्तन में आप ट्रेंड्स क्या देखते हैं, रुझान क्या है, और उन रुझान से, उन धारा से क्या आप कह सकते हैं कि जब कोई समाज पूंजीवादी बन रहा है या औद्योगिकृत हो रहा है, तब उसमें आप लगभग लगभग इस तरह के रुझान या इस तरह के तत्व या देख सकते हैं. So the point is that you create an ideal type which enables you to identify broad trends, broad, sort of characteristics by which you can identify what is, what the characteristics. You can identify the broad structure of that society. And then any society that seems to be on that path, you try to understand in terms of that ideal type. Does it seem to be along these lines? Does it overwhelmingly embody the ideas that are in the ideal type, and so on? So it's a theoretical construct, and no society can be expected to aspire to a theoretical construct. Theoretical construct तो आप सोच के निकाल रहे हैं ना, जो आपको दिख रहा है, उसके आधार पर आप कुछ एक सोच रहे हैं, उस सोच के जरिए आप उस समाज का विश्लेषण कर सकते हैं. So therefore, the ideal type is a construct which he then uses in different kinds of contexts. Ideal type is used for bureaucracy specifically, but he also uses it for other things. So we will focus on the ideal type. Okay, so that completes our discussion on the context. Now we can go on to the discussion on the actual elements of the thoughts that Weber had, his thought process on the bureaucracy itself. Now, just to quickly refer to the other document that I sent you, excerpts from readings. So in that you will see that there's Guy Peters right in the beginning. So Decline of Late Capitalism. Of course, this is really more relevant for Niskanen as well as for Marx in many ways. But when you read this, you get a sense of how you need to think about capitalism, and and how thinking about capitalism then enables you to understand people thinking about democracy. But the real, immediate relevant thing for Weber is, of course, from Alan Kiernan, Kieran Allen, sorry. V.G. Kiernan used to be another writer, so I've got Kiernan more set on my tongue. Okay, so Kieran Allen is talking about the background of Weber, if you notice. So this context that I was talking about, you'll find a lot in Kieran Allen in the first few pages that I have given you. So the fact that he, where he's writing about what he and so on. So the first few pages of Kieran Allen, 3-4 pages, that gives you the kind of background. The one other point which I've just seen in Kieran Allen, which I will talk about later. And then if you go to Gerthen Mills, straight from Kieran Allen, Gerthen Mills, I've painstakingly taken out stuff from Gerthen Mills to give to you to read, because Gerthen Mills is very exhaustive. It has lots of different ideas of Weber being discussed. It's a huge book. So I spent a lot of time actually taking out stuff from Gerthen Mills to give to you. So if you notice on page 25 of this document, of our document, which I have sent to you, where the Gerthen Mills starts, I'm sorry, it looks like I haven't given you the complete reference for Girth and Mills. Girth and Mills is actually selections from Weber. I will just correct. I will just send you the reference, um, complete reference after this lecture. Then you can just add it in that document so that you know where you are reading from. If you see page 17 to 18, Girth and Mills. I've talked about the background. I picked up on the background. So what was the whole question of democracy, whole question of democracy? Where does it come from? Marx and Weber. It explains many things about how Marx's approach is different from Weber's approach. And in some cases, they're actually very similar. You need to look at those carefully. That will, you see, all of these things can't be explained in the classroom. But when you're sitting with yourself and reading it, you learn many things simply by looking at it closely. I would really urge you to read. You have a lot of time. I would urge you to read this carefully because it will give you a very rounded understanding of a Weber. So it's in a fair amount of detail. I would encourage you to read this detail. And then, of course, there's a whole question on bureaucracy and charisma, which we will talk about, which we've talked about in one way, but in Girth and Mills is discussed somewhat differently. So I would like you to read that and see how rationalization occurs. So much detail is not possible in the classroom. That's why you need to really read it by yourselves. And then we will go to the ideal type. There's a lot of good explanation about the ideal type here. So pages 60 to 70, from which I have taken in Girth and Mills, that explains to you about ideal type. So is that useful? I hope you understand that the different parts of the lecture that I have discussed with you, you know where to pick it up from in terms of the readings that I have given. If there are any questions, any comments, do put them here in the chat box. I find that I'm being able to relate to this. And the last question on charismatic authority uh, that was asked, it's a much larger question. Who are you? Explore the world. Whatever your name is, beta. How can a charismatic leader exercise charismatic authority? We won't go into that because here we can't spend time discussing charismatic leadership, as I'm saying again and again. I can understand that if everybody wants to raise this question. We should slot a different time. Okay. So from here then, let's go back to the lecture outline. And then we see that we need to discuss on the ideas and writing on bureaucracy, description of the formal order. Oh no, my Microsoft Word has suddenly collapsed. Okay, never mind. I will just reload it. Okay, but when we look at the ideas on bureaucracy from Weber, we find that the characteristics of bureaucracy, which Weber actually talks about, are the core of the ideas that we really need to look at in some detail, because the most important thing about them is that Weber is identifying bureaucracy as a public institution that evolves with certain characteristics during the modern period, with the rise of industrialization, with the creation of new kinds of organizations and institutions in society as a whole and not for government in particular. We need to remember that in all societies, organizations come out of the way in which society is organized. There are certain central principles which societies begin to follow, which societies begin to believe in. And those principles then become the guiding factors of all institutions that the society is going to follow, is going to create, and is going to use in order for it to be establishing the work of any kind. So whether it is work for an economic unit, whether it is work for a social unit, or whether it is work for a political unit. Uh, this formal order of bureaucracy is a product of the time in which rationalization, rational structuring of work, the principles according to which work is divided amongst people, the way it is um, distributed, who takes the responsibility, what are the grounds on which responsibilities are distributed, what are going to be the principles by which any organization commits itself to certain kinds of goals. These are the foundational these are the foundational ideas that Weber is identifying. And he's saying that these constitute a bureaucratic order of the modern period. What he's saying is that this bureaucratic order that is created in the modern organization that has, as I said, certain structures, certain concepts, certain logic, certain systems, which are at the heart of this new society trying to achieve it. And that is why you will find these formal organizations across the board. You'll find them in, as I said earlier, you'll find them in social contexts, you'll find them in economic contexts, and you'll find them in political contexts. This is important because it's not as if commerce did not exist before industrialization. It's not as if political administration did not exist. Of course, such big empires were run, they had their own bureaucracies. Such big economic trading groups, all kinds of production systems existed even before capitalism. How were they run? They had different kinds of organizations. Hmm. Social organizations, you have the church, you have all kinds of things, different kinds of organizations in the pre-capitalist era as well. What happens under capitalism? That there is a fundamental revision of the way in which organizations are created, organizations are structured. What happens? And once we understand that, then we find that that's the structure that actually uh, also come up to the, oh, now what happens? Sorry. What is going on suddenly? I'm sorry, but who are these people who have come in with this slogan, Chalo Ayodhya Chalo? Why have they come into this meeting? Don't they realize that this is a class? This is the problem with YouTube. You know, like, यहाँ पर तो भाई हम क्लास पढ़ा रहे हैं उसके बीच में कैसे हाउ डू यू रिपोर्ट दिस ये हम पढ़ा रहे हैं और उसके बीच में ओह थैंक यू Shuki, you would advise I just please block. There are 3 dots on the right side of the comments. Okay. but it says participants. Okay, but they are not. Okay, so what do I do? How can I block them? I have to learn these things better. I don't know how to block them. How do you block them? I've never blocked anyone in my life. Uh, Three dots on the right, participants list coming. Click on the comment and options will come. Okay. Oh, should I block them or do I report them? What do I do? I've got it. I've understood that I have to click on the comments. I've got that. My life is being hacked. Press the comments. वो सब तो कर दिया मैंने. हाँ, एक को ब्लॉक या रिमूव करने से फायदा थोड़ी है बेटा. वो तो let me just report. Harassment. Choose once harassing everyone actually. Okay. Just ignore and continue teaching. Turn off the chat option. Okay. Turn off chat. How do I turn off the chat option? Oh, okay. Let me just see how to turn off chat. Just one second. Let me just see. How, the students are saying just इसको बंद ही कर दीजिए वैसे.
Comment.
हाँ. How can we block it? Turn off the chats option. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, अच्छा वहाँ से दिख ही नहीं रहा है. Turning off the chat option. There should be some way. Madam ध्यान मत दो से. I understand that I shouldn't pay attention to them. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll try to continue. Yes, please. That was very. Thank you that you are going to help me figure out how to have the class without. Ashutosh, I deleted your mistake, your message by mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't intend to delete your thing, but at the end of the lecture, we can ask our questions then. At the bottom, chat option is available. Hey, hang on a second. Now, Bitu, I'm not being able to do this. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, I'll just finish the lecture. Anyway, there's not much time left. So let me just finish. I'll ignore these people. I'll carry on with the lecture. And we'll just try to rework this thing. We'll also have to rework our time. I mean, we'll have to fix a time and so on. वो भी कर सकते हैं हम. ठीक है? अच्छा. So I was talking about the structure of the characteristics of the bureaucracy and how we are going to be talking about those as an understanding of Weber's core, contribution. And we can, what we are going to look at is how the characteristics that Weber gives, uh, you know, uh, about the modern bureaucracy are characteristics of modern organizations that come out of these fundamental changes in society. We talked about rational legality earlier. So, rational legal authority, or the foundation of rational legality, means that all organizations would follow the principles that come out of rational legality. Yes, I remember I was saying that it's not as if all of these kinds of organizations, there must have been some economic organizations that were actually that were in existence before, when there were these big markets, big production systems. There were huge monarchies. They had bureaucracies, and of course, all societies had social organizations. There were guilds, there were merchant organizations, there were all kinds of things, and in all societies. There was in China, in India, in West Asia, and in Europe, everywhere else in the world. So, what we need to understand is the difference in the modern organization. And this is where Weber's contribution is very significant. That the modern organization, in terms of its principles, its foundational principles, the logic of functioning, the logic of its hierarchy, what can be done, what cannot be done in modern organizations is foundationally different from the ones that come before. So, this, Gaurav, what is the matter with you? Why are you getting into this kind of a discussion? Don't distract me, please. I've told you many times. I do not like being distracted in the class. So, what we need to understand is that we need to understand those foundational principles which make the modern bureaucracy significantly different, structurally different, institutionally a very different animal from that of the ones that existed before. So, that is what we are going to be studying in Weber. What I would like you to do, because we are close to finishing the class now, the time is up. So what we can do is, I would like you now to look at the Girton Mills extracts that I have sent you. Look at, what he says in terms of, what I've taken out in terms of the rationalized structure that the bureaucracy is, what kind of characteristics it has. So this is what we are going to be looking at very, very closely. Have a look at that I've sent you. Many things will make much more sense, I hope, now that I have given you a preliminary sort of insight into what we look at Weber. And let's come back, and I will complete this discussion in the next time. Yeah? Okay. So can we quickly decide on when we are going to, or we can decide on the group, and we can reconvene. I would what I would like you to do is to discuss amongst yourselves, and I can meet you every day at 11 actually, and we can just meet. If you do not already have some sort of commitment to the 11 o'clock slot, then I would say every day, maybe this week, or because today is already Tuesday. So if you do Wednesday, Thursday, at least 3 days this week. And then next week we can do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then, or whatever. And then, we can very quickly go through the topics that we have. Because what I am supposed to teach you, I'm sure you already know, I'm supposed to do Weber, Marx, Niskanen, and then I'm supposed to do the feminist critique, and then I'm supposed to do the non-Western perspectives of books. So, um, so a lot of people are saying that uh, that 11 is okay, but one person is suggesting that I just record the lectures and share the link with you, and you read it at your own time, and then you come back with questions, later. Um, you decide amongst yourselves. I can record the lecture and send it to you as well. I don't need to do it live. Uh, I know that a lot of people are saying 11, 11 the time is fine, but the modality, if you want me to just, uh, lives are more comfortable. For you, I suppose, yes. Okay. So you take a call in the group, you talk amongst yourselves, you decide, and you let me know. Pooja, Alok, the two CRs I'm in touch with, I don't know if there are other CRs, you can let me know. Google Meet, I believe. I've done Google Hangouts before. I'm sure I can figure out Google Meets as well. Um, that is a good idea. So I record and send. आप लोग मुझे भेजिए, बताइए, and I will do. But I can also do. So I'll tell you what. Let's do 11 tomorrow. Uh, Recording this live video, how to save it and all. Let me see what I can do. I don't know how well I can do it. I'll try my best. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for joining. I know I'm not performing at my 100% best, definitely. Um, so you decide amongst yourselves and let me know. I'm getting very distracted by all this chat. I understand that you're trying to contribute. Okay? All right. I'll see you tomorrow at 11. And then if you want recorded, whatever, we will decide. But tomorrow, 11, let's decide whether we want to do YouTube Live or whether we want to do Google Meets. If you want to change that, then we can do the Google Meets as well. Let me know. Okay? Thank you very much. इनको नहीं किया अभी तक but I don't know whether you can end it and.
The only way to find out is by ये तो रहेगा, I'm sure. When we end.
अरे मैम क्या टर्न ऑफ कर भी देंगी हम कितने को ब्लॉक करेंगे
No, next time we'll just disable the comment.
हाँ
That's it. So I was checking how to do the W comment that when it's on already. वो
हाँ
पहले आपको settings को दे. Should I see your class is over?
oh
So I
class
can-
is over thanks